very good evening to everybody. This is the second series of Veterans Victory. The first session did beautifully, and we were able to address a lot of issues which veterans were facing. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Dr. Rupinder Kaur. She herself served in the army, after which she has donned various roles in big organizations such as Accenture, EY. In fact, up until recently, she was the director learning at EY. Apart from this, she's also had an extensive experience helping veterans transition into the corporate world. She will be helping us understand what is skill mismatch, how to upskill yourself in a strategic way so that you can climb the corporate ladder. Apart from that, she'll also be sharing her own journey. So, Dr. Rupinder, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you so much for having me here. I am truly humbled to be a part of this session.
So let's get right into it. And let's understand why veterans have trouble getting a job. Do they, by the way, have trouble getting the app job?
So, when you look at this issue, this is multifold. The answer is not that straightforward because the stakeholders are many. So, and when I say stakeholders, I clearly put it across as three broad stakeholders here. One is, of course, the person who, or the veteran who himself or herself is transitioning. The other is the person or the organization which is going to hire the 4G or the veteran who's transitioning. And the third is, of course, the organization, which is the military per se, which is helping the officer transition into the mainstream corporate. Now, when you say that veterans do not get jobs, no, they do get jobs. I'm not saying they do not completely. Provided they have put a decent amount of thought into it and have substantially devoted some time to preparing for the transition. Now, that's where the catchword is. Most time where the ball falls or where the rubber fails to meet the road is, despite knowing the fact that they have to transition in X amount of months or years, the fact dawns on them just before a few months when they are into transition. That's where the first one falls. The second one falls where they do not align themselves to the expectations of what the other side of the fence will look like. While we do come with our own strengths, as when we are in the uniform, Forge teaches us a lot. But are those skill sets really what the corporate world requires? Is where the second ball falls. So these are largely the two fundamentals, I think, where the preparation is not enough and the mindset is still ingrained with the previous way of doing things. That's why we find it a little difficult to transition sometimes.
So our point of this whole session is to help veterans make the transition as smooth as possible. So there might be various factors which might prevent this transition from being a smooth one, and there might be various factors which play a catalyst role, in making the transition smoother. So can you help us understand what are the factors which would make it not so smooth and the factors which would really help the veterans make it really smooth?
Sure. So I'll take the first one first, which is like, how do we make this transition a little more smoother, given the fact that we've identified that there are gap areas? First and foremost, I'll say, when you look at a transition, every veteran, and that's my sincere request to all those people who are transitioning out right now, look it as not a job change, look it as a career transition. Because when you do that, it's almost like you've worn the uniform, whether for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. Whenever you leave out, when you transition, it's a completely new life altogether. It's a completely new career altogether. In which case, the preparation needs to start, to my experience, minimum of 18 months, if not 2 years, I would say, to really land into the career that you would want to land into. Yeah. So take it as a very systematic and a planned way of transitioning, which is what will make the career journey easier and smoother for you. So set up milestones. 18 months, what do you need to do at 18 months? You need to start looking out what is it that you would want to transition into. Try to make up a mind. Try to move into a certain specific role rather than keeping the canvas open for you like a jack of all trades. So try and figure out what is your passion and try to really move towards that line. Identify that and then start looking at a mentor in and around your circle, specifically from the corporate sector if you can do that, so that over the next year and a half, that mentor or a coach whom you approach and identify, and there could be more than one, they can help you really understand how does the outside world really look like. In which case, you can do a very quick SWOT analysis for yourself. And having done that, you'll be able to identify the gaps that you have currently in you, which the corporate world requires. In which case, then you have an adequate time period of almost 6 months to 1 year to prepare for that, filling that gap. So that's one thing that I think we should definitely do as veterans, that plan your transition as a systematic, organized journey over a period of 18 months to 1 year before you transition out. Now, the second thing, which is a little more, I think, concrete is, and that's what I've experienced for myself also. You know, Army is an institution which prepares you for everything, in the sense that and when I say Army, take it to mean as Army, Navy, and Air Force, so the military forces per se. And we are trained to deliver, and we are trained to handle a multitude of skills for the simple reason that we are supposed to be autonomous in that sense. So you name it and we can do it. Unfortunately, in the corporate world or in the outside world, this particular skill is not taken in the same light, as much as it is about leadership skills, it's also about being a subject matter expert, in which case it is prudent for a transitioning officer to really identify the role that you would want to target going forward, basis which identify the skills and the knowledge that you would need to upgrade, and most importantly, equip yourself with the relevant certifications that you would need to prove to the corporate world that even if you don't have direct experience in that domain, you have relevant certification and knowledge, and what you bring to the table is your vast amount of diverse experience in various domains. So that's the second thing. And the third is to really make yourself corporate ready. And when I say corporate ready, two things. One is speak the language that the corporate understands, which starts from building your resume. Yeah, how do you project yourself to a person who's interviewing you and hiring you and making those hiring decisions? So try and understand where those people are coming from and translate your military experiences into the language which is easy to understand for them. That's going to be very, very critical. And the last but not the least in this to-do domain things is to enlarge your relationships with people outside the military services, because not only will they give you the right perspective of what is required, but going forward, these are the people who will generate opportunities for you as and when they arise. And we all know in the big bad world out there, as much as it is about the job portals and organizations which are helping the organizations hire, 70% of the roles are filled through internal referrals. Yeah, so it's mandatory for Fauji to look at his network as a potential source of learning, collaborating, and an easier transition. Yeah, so that's I think the things which Fauji should do. I think the second part of the question was that what is it that they falter into? Am I correct, Regina?
Correct. What are the negatives? What are the biggest challenges, if you may?
Yeah. So the biggest two challenges that come to my mind, Regina, are one is the fact that I would not call it a typical. So there's a different way the forge works, and there's a different way the corporate works. And when I say different ways, if just have to give you a quick example, you know, the army is a very structured, top-down, hierarchical organization
Right.
where rigor and order is paramount. Yeah, and it's built in a certain way because it has to serve a certain purpose. You know, the hierarchy and command and control structure is important to a certain extent, because you can't have a soldier defying orders in the battlefield, right?
Right.
So that's the reason that the army is built that way. While the outside world is more fluid, it's matrixed, it's changing day in and day out, which is why I think one of the things that we need to look at is when we transition into is how fast are we ready to unlearn what we have learned from our alma mater. And I'm not saying that you need to unlearn everything, okay? Not that. There are values and principles, in fact, which become the unique selling points or unique points that a 4G comes with. But you need to unlearn some of the stuff that you have learned. Be very, very observant and be a very quick relearner, because that's the mindset, the agile mindset, the learning mindset, which is of critical importance to the outside world, because the dynamics are changing not by the day, they're changing by the minute. So one thing where we end up, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of times the ball being dropped is that when we become too fixed or rigid in our mindset to say this is the way it works and this is what we have learned. So we need to be quick in learning the ways of the world. And the second time where the ball drops again is because we have limited people whom we really reach out to when asking for help. So for example, again, this is the way the army is ingrained. We are like, generally people are supposed to be self-sufficient. You can do a lot of things yourself as much as it's about teamwork. We need to be open about admitting that there is as much as we can know, and there is much more to learn, and which is why connecting with the right people, enlarging your network, giving it back to those people is again very, very critical. You cannot have a dream job sitting in the four walls of a room. You need to move out of that room, and you need to move out of that mindset to see what will work for you. Yeah.
So you briefly talked about your own experience, your own transition in time, right? So if you could take us back in time and tell us what did you experience at that point. Now, obviously, you have gained a lot of knowledge and you have passed it on, but were you fumbling yourself at that point? Did you face any specific challenges?
So, and thank you for asking that, Regina. A transition is never an easy one. It's never an easy one for anyone who's transitioning. I transitioned 10 years back. There are people who transitioned 20 years back, 25 years back, and you will find a lot of resonance of challenges that we all faced, when we transitioned. And the challenges, I wouldn't say were more or less, they were just different, I guess, because the world, I transitioned in 2010 and we're sitting in 2020 right now. So it's just 10 years back that we're talking about. Some of the quick challenges that come to my mind are, so I was a medical doctor when I transitioned, and while in the forces, I was doing a lot of things. I chose not to continue with the medical profession because of multiple reasons that I had at my personal front, and also because I wanted to explore something different with regards to my career. So I chose to be a learning and development professional. Now, what that meant for me as a professional was that I was 10 years back in comparison to my peers who were already there. So for example, if there was somebody, if I applied for a job, let's say as a manager or a senior manager, I was 5 years in the army. And people would ask me, but what is your relevant experience, right? What have you done in learning and development? And I really didn't have a very concrete answer at that point in time, although knowing the fact that army is one organization, or forces is one organization where training is paramount. In fact, we believe in the philosophy that, the more you train in peace, the less you bleed in war, which means that training for us is almost 100% of the time, whether we are on field or whether we are on peace. And also to keep constantly updated of whatever best is happening, to improve on your tactical actions and strategic knowledge, you have to keep yourself updated. But then it was a huge challenge for me, and which is why I had to really go through the rigor of identifying the right certifications from the best institutions across the world, which will, if not completely fill up for experience, will at least prove that I have a decent amount of knowledge. So I went ahead and did my ATD, which is American Society of Training and Development Master Certification from USA. I did my Indian Society of Training and Development Diploma from from Indian ISTD. Then I did my MBA in HR from Symbiosis, just to get an understanding and a head start of positioning myself in the space that I wanted to be in. It's been a journey, Regina. I'm not saying it's either good or bad. It's just it's different. You need to start looking at it, the canvas, for you not to uh, uh, from the standpoint of a competitor, because then you will never get there. You have to start looking at the canvas, that how most can you collaborate with what you have, and what can you generate going forward in the next 3 years with regards to skills, with regards to experience, and with regards to relationships. And and so that's how it happened, and it's been a journey till that time. Since that time.
Right, an exciting one, I'm pretty sure. There is one peculiar question I want to ask you, which is, do you think women veterans face any particular challenges, or is it's a plain level field for everybody?
Okay, I've been researching with regards to women leadership in general. My research says that out of the Fortune 500 companies across the world, only 5% are women. And in India, the number is only 3%. And why I'm quoting those numbers is because these are the roles that matter, right? It doesn't matter more women at the entry level. What matters is more women at the decision-making levels, which is how the real diversity of any workplace equality or equity comes in. Having said that, do women veterans face the same challenges? Personally, I think to a large extent, the challenges are similar. But where we falter a little bit, or where we could do a little better with as women veterans, is we don't really have too much of a community support. So for example, even for veterans, I have seen for men veterans, they have small groups of their own, in which case they get that additional mentoring and coaching kind of a support from the already transition veterans who have. Now, simply because the number, anyways, of women veterans is much lower than what men veterans are, so the clear people who can be reached out to as mentors and coaches is also relatively low, which is why there could be a bit of challenge when you're really looking at a little bit of hand-holding, support, and guidance when you are transitioning out. The number is a little low. And also because women are usually, whether they are wearing uniform or they're not wearing uniform, the household responsibility to a large degree still rests with them or lies with them. They do not also get a lot of active opportunities to go out and network, especially in the transitioning phase, especially when they're hanging the uniform, because there are certain new contacts and relationships which need to be built, which they haven't yet built, in which case they need to go out and network. And because of the additional responsibilities, they're not really able to do that. I can say that because I have experienced that myself. I had to really go out and seek actively, whether it was on LinkedIn or on networking forums or on places where such forums were being hosted to really understand what's happening in the outside world. So that could be, I think, one minor difference with regards to transitioning women and men veterans.
All right. I think that was quite insightful. I wouldn't have guessed that women were facing such challenges, but it's quite nice that you brought this up. And maybe since you've started this conversation, we can take it forward and do something more for women veterans and give them the wings to climb up the corporate ladder, right? Also, now coming to a lighter question, what was it like during your training period in the in the armed forces? Was it as vigorous as media paints it?
So the training days, I think, are as much rigor, as much fun. I have very fond memories of the training days, and I have also some of the harshest things that I underwent through the training days. But then those are also the times which shape you up as a person, right? So I still remember a lot of incidents from my training days. Being on time was so critical and important that a late, coming late by 2 minutes meant you have to run 800 meters extra, yeah, as a punishment of that particular, time discipline. Then, because there were only 3 women officers in a batch of 50 male officers that were being trained together, and you wanted to prove that you are, less than your male colleagues. So you ensure that you go the extra mile. There was a BPT, I remember, which we used to run, which was 5 kilometers. We had to run in combats along with the weapon. And so female officers were given the leverage that it's okay if you do not, hold the weapon and run, and you can run otherwise also. But again, as I mentioned, because of that Josh thing and, the thing that you wanted to be equal, I ensured that I ran along the entire 5 kilometers with the weapon. So I think those are a lot of moments of, and of course, can't forget the late night parties when we used to be out for camping, and and after a very hard day's work of rifle training, and there used to be a map exercise where we were given a map as a group, and we had to really, like, typically like a treasure hunt, we had to really go and find our way throughout the difficult terrains of the camping area. And by the night, when we used to get tired, so everybody used to be, really sitting around the campfire, laughing our way to glory, and, just getting into that feeling of camaraderie and bonding with all the entire group. So it was a lovely period of, let's say, fun, camaraderie, teamwork, discipline. And it's very important and imperative, Regina, because as much as the rigor is there, it also binds you into some common threads and underlying principles of values, which kind of form your character for many, many years to come.
Right. So I'm sure you picked up many skills during your training and your service, right? Which you can easily incorporate in your day-to-day civilian life and also in your corporate life, right? So can you point out some of the key skills which you have picked up during your service?
There are actually many. And I say this to everyone. In fact, frankly speaking, I'm a firm believer with all the naysayers that are going around, that each individual should go through a mandatory service training. Now, the duration can be decided as in, and how is it economical to the institutions also.
I mean, like Israel goes through like everybody in Israel, I think, gets the training.
Correct.
That's
correct.
Oh, interesting.
Correct. Absolutely. So I'll tell you why I feel this. It's not, one is of course that you will also get a chance to serve the nation. India being the largest army, India being the 4th largest army in the world, and with 1.2 million soldiers on ground, we are also one of the strongest militaries in the world. So it's a whole plethora that we are looking at here, but not discounting that, what I feel is that in the initial years of your work life, if you get grounded in certain values, these values become a part of who you are. Yeah. And it comes naturally to you. I'll give you one example. So when I joined the corporate and I was in learning and development, I was responsible for identify the learning needs of the people in the organization, and then craft learning journeys, learning programs, and so on and so forth, so that people get ingrained and aligned with the organizational values and systems. Yeah. One thing that I was clearly told to do in my early days was, to design a training program on ownership and accountability. Yeah, and which is one of the important areas of need in most organizations. For us, ownership and accountability is a given. For a person who's donned a uniform, is something this is imperative. You cannot survive without ownership and accountability. When a task is given to you, you might as well complete it 10, 11, 12, 1 in the night, whatever it is. So having said that, if I have to kind of completely cull it into, let's say, what skills have I learned in the military which have helped me in the corporate, I think discipline is topmost for me. Discipline of getting things done. Ownership and accountability is a big one again, because nobody's going to do for you, right? You are responsible for what happens to you,
Right.
which means it also helps you to get out of the victim mentality. Most of us have this tendency to blame it. Ye career promotion nahi hua, ye pay raise nahi mila, ya these people are harming me, ye conflict hai. We are trained to look at, in fact, personally, I look at first inwards and then I try and get the blame thing out. So that's the second thing. And the third thing that I learned is how to be flexible or agile on my feet. The best laid plans fail at the first contact of the enemy, is what we say. So even if you plan extensively with scenario planning and multiple scenarios and all of that, you don't know whether it will succeed or not. In which case, you have to be ready to let me look at a second way of doing things and try and adjust to the new normal. So those are the three things I think that I definitely helped me navigate my journey through the corporate.
So you've been helping a lot of veterans transition, right? So can you share with us some stories of triumph or any other instance where you thought that a veteran was, not performing or could do better and you helped them?
Thank you so much for asking that question. I have quite a few stories, but because there's confidentiality involved, I may not want to really reveal that. I can share with you one or two quick situations if I can. I remember about six to 7 months back, I received a call from a lady officer, and she was going through a lot of pain, saying that I wanted to get this X role, and because I had an issue with the family. My family was at a certain place and I was a certain place. While I got a certain role in that place, I could not accept it. Now I am not really able to understand what do I do about it, because the place that I'm in and the kind of role that I want, I don't really have too much of an option. So the next question that I asked her, Regina, was, so, okay, what is it that the role that you're targeting? And interestingly, the answer that I got was, I can do supply chain, I can do operations, I can do HR, I can do admin. I really have a lot of empathy for my fellow officers in that sense. They are not to blame, because frankly speaking, we do all of this stuff in Forge. A single officer is required to do all of this. But if you say the same thing to a corporate outside, they will not even consider you for once, not even the preliminary interview, because they are looking for specific people for specific jobs. A supply chain management is a big role in itself, and which has multiple reportees. So what I did to help her was to really identify her niche. I helped her understand her own limitations to what she wanted to have, get a very clear role that she identified, helped her craft a value proposition to the role that she wanted to bring. And I think it was a journey of 4 months where she actually ended up with a very meaty role in the place that she wanted. So that was one success story. And the success story is basically based on clarifying your own definition of what you want. That is paramount. Second good story that I can share with you is where I helped a gentleman, again a transitioning officer, create an elevator pitch or a brand statement for them, which is very, very important and paramount. While we've done what we've done in those many years of service, it is also important to collate what you have done in in an articulate manner, to put it across to your stakeholders, and in that sense create a niche or a brand for yourself in the role that you are targeting. And that gentleman hasn't been placed as of now, but has already got 3 different offers, compensation that he was expecting, which initially he was struggling at. So that's the second thing that I can share with you. To kind of close this entire conversation, if I can share this with you, Regina, as a part of a larger group where I have other collaborators with me, we have recently launched a program on mentorship for transitioning veterans. This is a completely pro bono initiative, and the aim is to the community by means of mentoring, hand-holding, and coaching brother officers and sisters so that they can have a smoother transition into the new world that they're seeking.
All right. So once again, thank you for giving us insights into your life during your services, also your life right now. I think you have achieved a lot. And the most beautiful thing is that you've helped many people and you've shared your own experience. I think empathy is very strong, is one thing you believe in, right? And that is what has helped you really help as many people as possible.
Thank you so much, Regina. I think that just comes without saying. That's the basic starting point. So, but yeah, I have tried my best. Maybe some efforts have translated, some will translate in due course of time. The underlying principle again remains to give back to the community as much as you can.
All right, then until next time. By the way, we have more beautiful sessions planned, and Dr. Rupinder will be one of the panelists in the session towards the end of the month, which is on 26th August, which will provide a holistic view of all the veterans who are transitioning. So until then, have a beautiful evening and see you soon.